Today we're playing Medieval Dynasty, and you may already be wondering, why is there a rain of soft white cheese falling over this medieval countryside? Well, meet our hero Racimir, currently age 36 and a bona fide cheese god. But to tell this story, we have to roll back the clock to the beginning of this playthrough, and he was just a tender young lad at the age of 18. Having been driven from his homeland due to a war, Racimir arrived in the valley, and was unsure of what his life's mission was to be. But that all changed one day, and he went to a local tavern and saw they had on the menu one of his favorite meals, pierogi. Except when this pierogi was served to him, it was a far cry from anything he would even consider to be acceptable. The filling they had used in this pierogi was just disgusting. It was some kind of flavorless root vegetable all mashed up, and they didn't add any sort of farmer's cheese to give it a nice sharp edge. And then they boiled the shit out of this pierogi in some kind of oil until it was just a dry, crunchy husk of what a pierogi should be. Oh, Racimir did not like this one bit. But to try to salvage this pierogi, he asked for some butter to maybe give it some flavor and moisture. But do you know how they responded to this request? They chuckled and said, "Oh, Racimir, only you would think of such a thing." Red with rage, he punched a goose and left the town with his spirit broken. Later, after he calmed down a bit, he realized that his goal in life and the goal for this playthrough has been established: to deliver an overwhelming amount of the best quality Quark cheese to all the villages in the valley, so they may finally live a life no longer under the curse of unacceptable pierogi! And since Medieval Dynasty is a rather chill game and isn't exactly that challenging, I'm going to add a couple of self-imposed rules for this playthrough to make things a little more interesting. 1. As Racimir is disgusted by the people he has met, he is confining all construction to this one island. This one island whose surrounding waters will cleanse himself or anyone else who may visit from any taint they should have acquired from coming in contact with the pierogi heathens. It shall hereby be dubbed Cheese Island. And 2. If someone can't make a good pierogi, can you really trust the quality of any other goods they may produce? I didn't think so. Thus, Racimir is not allowed to buy any goods from the people of the valley. One exception will be made in allowing the purchase of farm animals, as there is no way to acquire them in the game otherwise. However, all farm animals purchased must be baby animals. Baby animals that have never grown up and been trained yet in any perverse ways by these disgusting people who accept such terrible pierogi. So with the rules established, let's begin the life of Racimir, the Quark King of Cheese Island! The first day of this quest consisted of searching the countryside, looking for any goods to help get this operation up and running. He found some cabbage for nourishment, a nice recurve bow, and an iron cudgel that would go on to become a skull-bonking family heirloom as it remained by his side for the next 18 years. In the afternoon, he reached Cheese Island for the first time and set out to work building himself a home. He worked all through the night on this fine stone house, picking rocks, chopping trees, almost dying to falling trees, trying to hit an eagle with a hammer, dying to trees. But come dawn, Racimir had a home, and the settling of Cheese Island had begun. For the next few days leading into the summer season, he built 2 more additional houses for the next residents of Cheese Island, along with a hunting lodge and a woodshed to provide the new residents with places to work and to start generating the first basic resources needed to start building his Quark empire. On the second day of summer, he set out on foot to tour all the villages of the valley, looking for people to join him on Cheese Island. However, he was also looking for a special kind of person. See, there's a mechanic in this game where once you settle down and get married, your spouse will dole out a series of quests that result in specialist settlers that you can invite in your village, who start off with far better skills than the rabble you find hanging out in the villages. So aside from finding his woodcutter and huntress, Racimir was also looking for a wife. But not just any woman with the appropriate skills would do. If he is to introduce the valley with the best ingredients for their pierogi, then he must tap into the absolute best people for making pierogi, the Polish. Only a Polish wife will do for Racimir. In the nearest village at Cheese Island, Tutki, I met a woman who had potential. She had what we needed with a nice big 3-level skill under the bow and arrow icon. But Lorelei? Lorelei? Go back to Germany, lady! I also may have led her on a little bit and invited her to the colony before going just kidding and kicking her out. A heartless strategy I picked up on where you can get rid of insufficient NPCs and hopefully someone with better skills will replace them in the next season. In Baranitsa, I met a modest woman named Nabrava who had the skills needed to work my woodshed and invited her to Cheese Island. But I didn't quite think she was wife material for Racimir. There's just something more alluring about a woman who can work a bow and dagger. So the quest for the perfect wife for Racimir continued. And continued. And continued. Summer ended, and I still hadn't found the perfect Polish huntress wife for Racimir. On the first day of autumn, I built the town's resource shed. On the second day of autumn, I once again set out trying to find the perfect Polish wife for Racimir. Too much of the same results. Winter came, and I still hadn't found the perfect huntress wife for Racimir. But as I was putting 50 pieces of meat into storage, I realized I was being short-sighted. For the current small population that will be on Cheese Island for a while, Racimir himself can easily satisfy the food needs from what he hunts while he's out on the road on his little adventures. I was so set on the goal of finding a Polish bow maiden of a girlfriend, I didn't consider who I'd even need to bring onto the island next after that role was filled. If I were to make the best damn cheese on Cheese Island, I'm gonna need a damn good cook to help make this cheese. And while the idea of a hunter wife sure is a sexy one, if Racimir is to marry a Polish woman on Cheese Island, then one of the distinguished cooks who spends her days elbow deep inside the grand cheese hole is obviously who it should be. So for the rest of the winter, I wandered looking for both a wife and a hunter of less strict gender and ethnic requirements. And on the third day of winter, I found Samboja, a Polish hunter that a few days ago Racimir would have fallen head over heels for. But nonetheless, she had the skills he was looking for and was invited to the island. Returning to the colony, I pulled off what is probably the stupidest death I'll ever experience in this game. While thinking so much about his new crush of a Polish cook to help grow Cheese Island, Racimir had forgotten to drink water for so long that his health had drained to almost nothing. And while waiting for his routine bedtime of 7 p.m. to come around, he just dropped dead. Year 2. On the first day of spring, I built a barn and food storage, and then proceeded to place down my first modest farm field. With the farm set up, I once again set out to find Racimir a wife, but instead, I found my first group of bandits. The Iron Cudgel was pleased to finally feast on some manskull, and Racimir was pleased to steal the bandits' cheese. Spring turned into summer, and summer turned into autumn, and as the leaves on the trees started to curl up and die, so did Racimir's hopes that he would find the perfect Polish cheese mistress. But then, on a terrible, wet, raining day that was a perfect match for the sorrow he was feeling, he walked into Brinica as he had every season for the past year and a half, and there she was, Skarbimira with the production skills. I invited her to live on Cheese Island and to let the wooing begin. They went on walks in the water, sat around and thought about fish together. He even made sure to watch her while she slept so that no harm would come to her throughout the night. But something didn't feel right. Like the dog finally catching a car, the dream of having a Skarbimira was far more intense than the reality of actually having her. And over time, they faded apart. But like the plot of so many teen movies, Racimir realized that there was someone who had always been there for him. Someone who was keeping Cheese Island running while he ran around from town to town chasing his dream woman. Someone who was a true friend who also believed in him. So on the second day of winter in the second year, Racimir married Dubrava. And with the wife situation finally resolved, the true hell of this playthrough can finally begin! And sorry boomers, this isn't some wife bad joke, okay? Remember a ways back when I said,
I'm going to add a couple of self-imposed rules for this playthrough to make things a little more interesting.
Well, this is where things get interesting. As it stood, Cheese Island was hardlocked to 10 buildings. And in order to unlock more capacity in Medieval Dynasty, you need to complete these chapter quests. And over a year previously in the game during the first autumn, I casually crafted a hoe while walking through the forest and progressed the chapter quest to number 5, a farm. On a normal playthrough, these quests are normally very quick and sort of guide new players as a tutorial for building their settlement. But given Racimir's disgust of the people of the valley, and the don't buy goods to them rule that I put in place because of it, this one chapter quest turned out to be a nightmare of tedium. In order to keep expanding Cheese Island, I had to do 4 things for this quest: acquire 15 each of fertilizer, carrot seeds, wheat grain, and cabbage seeds. During a typical playthrough, one would just walk to the nearest village that sells seeds and just buy them to quickly complete the quest. But thanks to my stupid rule, I was gonna have to acquire all this by other means. Fertilizer was easy. I had been collecting berries and composting them, so I just had to turn that compost into fertilizer. Easy peasy. I had found some wheat in an overturned cart and had already propagated enough before even getting married. But the carrot and cabbage seeds, oh my. I can't just steal crops from the other towns to gather seeds from, so I needed to rely on this game's RNG loot system, which consists of things like overturned carts, lost shipments, and lost sacks to provide me with these seeds. I roamed and searched for another full season and still had nothing. At this point, I started to panic a little that this might be a fool's errand. What if these seeds just weren't in any of the random loot pools? Huh? Then what? I searched for loot maps online and found one that showed a few locations for carrot seeds, but absolutely nothing when searching for cabbage. Does this mean there's no random cabbage loot? Can't be! I found cabbage! So if I search cabbage, cabbage should be on that map! I guess I can't trust that map to answer the cabbage question! I copied some facts about cabbage growth into my notes and thought, hey, if things get dire enough, I could just give in and buy some. I mean, my wife has already procured a farmer with 6 farming skills. I can just pretend she's gifted enough at farming to turn that cabbage I found into cabbage seeds based on these facts I found. But what if that breaks real-world cabbage lore, and suddenly all these cabbage lovers are getting uppity in the comments because I got a fact wrong about cabbage growth? Regardless, I persisted. Spring became summer, and still no seeds. Every lost shipment I found that had seeds, but not carrot or cabbage, just made me grow more and more frustrated. Autumn came, and I still had no seeds. But while I was plowing my fields that autumn, I started to think that it may be years before I finish this quest. Cheese Island's growth had stagnated, and my wife had produced possibly enough wood already to complete all future construction needs. And given that this game gives new mothers a 2-year maternity leave that puts America to shame, I figured now's a good time to produce an heir. So that night, after a hard day of plowing my fields, I plowed my wife. Feeling a bit chipper, Racimir once again set out the next day on the eternal quest for seeds. A lost shipment? Perhaps this is it? Nope! Just boring old money! Lost bags near the side of a creek? Cabbage seeds! Holy shit! I was so relieved to have finally found the seeds that after the celebration ended and I had moved on, I realized I had never actually grabbed the seeds from the bag. But at least I noticed this soon enough to go back and get them. Some bandits must have noticed me turn around and go back because they tried to take my seeds. Too bad for them, they ended up as just another blood feast for my iron cudgel. This just left the carrot seeds to be found, and I was far less concerned about them as they were listed on the loot map and also really close to Cheese Island so I could check them on the first day of every season. But alas, time went on. No carrot seeds were found during the rest of the autumn. In winter, I punched some bunnies and found new pants near the water, which was good because that old pair was probably still stained from the excitement of finding those cabbage seeds. But no carrots were discovered during winter. Spring came, and the iron cudgel once again feasted on some more man-face, but again, no carrots. Summer came, and Racimir now had a son! The heir of Cheese Island had been born, and we shall name him Shivit. But more importantly, on the same day my son Shivit was born, I found carrot seeds! This hell is over! Well, not really. It's currently in the summer season. Carrots can only be planted in the winter or spring, and then it takes carrots 2 frickin' seasons to mature. So if I plant them in winter, I won't be able to harvest the first seeds until the next summer, 1 full year from now. But it's going to take 2 plantings to propagate them up to the 15 seeds I need for this cursed quest step. So this step is going to take me 2 more in-game years before I can finally complete it. But at least it is no longer reliant on random chance. Knowing that it was just a matter of time until I could expand Cheese Island, I looked ahead. The next major thing I would need to accomplish is to start cheese production. And in order to make my own cheese, I would need to grind out my farm tech skill from 336 all the way up to 2,500 to unlock a fold which will let me keep goats. And while I could have bored myself to death grubbing and deleting fields all day like a psychopath, the method I chose was to travel to each village every season and look for NPCs giving quests that awarded farm tech. So for the next 2 years I wandered around looking for these quests, farmed my own fields manually to earn some additional farming tech points, did some basic updates around the town, maybe died a few times, and oh my god, I watched my son learn to walk and finally got to hear his first words. Can you say goo goo gaga dada?
People think talking makes them look smart. If they were smart, they would know when to remain silent.
Goodbye.
Finally, in the summer of year 6, I had my carrot seeds. The hell was done! The next steps to max out the city size were all trivial. But the first thing I needed to do was build a workshop and a well. Then I immediately smashed that well, since I wouldn't need automated water for some time yet. But oh my god! It took me just a little over 33 in-game hours to complete this stupid quest step. Jeepers! Oh. To help grind out the required farm technology faster, I started investing in buildings that would let my villagers generate tech points for me while Racimir was out horsing around in the world. A goose hut where, I hate to say this, but it finally made me realize that the gander in what's good for the goose is good for the gander actually refers to a male goose. Jesus Christ. And I built a farm shed so my farmers could do all the field work for me. Except I was losing a good 4 hours of productivity every day because for some reason my scumbag farmers Amerigo and Ingrida would start the workday by leaving Cheese Island, then go take this long ass stroll through the forest around the entire property before finally coming back to start their field work. I tried rearranging houses and fencing and whatnot to try to fix this pathfinding issue, but to no avail. Great! It is what it is, so I punched a rabbit and continued exploring for NPC farming quests until... Great. Lorelai's back from Germany. She has some skills now that I need, so, this time I invited her for real, but she wasn't allowed to be anywhere near the coveted cheese production. I landed a sick peak shooting headshot on this bandit, and by summer of year 8, I had grinded out enough tech to build a fold and start producing goat milk. However, the larger cow castle was only a mere 1,000 tech points away, and at this point in the game, every NPC farming quest I found was rewarding at least 250 points apiece. So still not sure about how much I'll be able to build on the island, I made the executive Cheese Island decision to hold off just a little longer and go for the cowshed. A decision I didn't regret, as I managed to snag a farm tech quest each of the next 3 seasons. And by the time I had completed those quests, my farmers, even with the 2 lazy assholes who enjoyed dainty walks more than backbreaking physical labor, had grinded out just enough farm tech quests for me to get the cowshed. In the spring of the 9th year, once I was able to get these asshole geese out of the way, I built my cowshed and punched a deer to celebrate. I bought some baby cows and just had to wait 1 more year for them to mature. And while the baby cows were maturing, I erected a wall around Cheese Island to keep the prying eyes of the people of the valley off of us. They had no clue what was about to hit them. With the privacy walls built and the first cow matured, the end game was finally here. The residents of Cheese Island holed up and focused on little more than Quark production. Day in and day out of pulling teats, souring milk, and storing cheese. Pulling teats, souring milk, storing cheese. Pulling teats, souring milk, storing cheese. I even went so far as to make my own cheese for maximum immersion. The climate conditions of the food stores that Racimir had built were absolutely perfect for long-term viability. And after 8 years of nothing but cheese making, Racimir had his overwhelming amount of Quark. And like some cheese-based Willy Wonka, it was time to unlock the gates of Cheese Island and wow everyone in the valley. Returning to Gastovia, where this whole debacle began nearly 2 decades ago, Racimir walked to the middle of town and called out, "You dogs with the shitty pierogi! I ask of you to open your hearts to the grand cheese hole!" And then boom! 1,000 pieces of Quark flew to the sky at Racimir's command and rained down upon the village. Oddly, the people of Gastovia were still not impressed. Not to be discouraged, Racimir once again did his cheese trick, and 9,000 more balls of Quark rained down on the people of Gastovia. This time, they had seen the light and were impressed. In Hornitsa, the verdict was swift by both mankind and horsekind. The cheese was good! Racimir had lifted them from the darkness. In Danitsa, the women sobbed and the children squealed in delight as a wave of cheese swept through their streets. And in Rolnitsa, the peasants cracked a smile as they realized they would never have to toil these fields again, as they have been blessed with enough cheese to last a lifetime. And in Barovo, a miracle happened. All throughout this playthrough, Racimir had been failing at one stupid little thing. Killing a bird with his bare fists. But then, on June 4th, 2023, this happened. After hours and hours of birds taking off well before he could get within punching range, he finally punched a pigeon out of the sky. Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I like to believe that the excessive amount of Quark laying on the ground caused enough leg and bird flight calculations to allow this to happen. Truly a miracle from the Grand Cheese Hole! The same story of pierogi salvation played out in Tutki, Branitsa, Leshnitsa, and Yazurika. And then we arrived in the final village, Baranitsa. There, I found a man named Marvald who appeared to be very sad. But chin up, little buddy, for you specifically have been blessed by the Grand Cheese Hole. Boom! All the Quark from the sky rained down directly on the Marvald. Rejoice! Except, this was different. This was very different. Unlike every other village in the valley, the people of Baranitsa were not impressed. They outright spoke ill of the Grand Cheese Hole. The people of Baranitsa did not see the light, and the people of Baranitsa shall be punished! Oh, what an adventure that was. Say, if you've made it this far, why not subscribe to this channel? As of recording this, I only have 63 subscribers, and this is America, where the only thing that matters is making a number get bigger.